Night was slowly descending over the Rocky Mountains, wrapping the peaks in a veil of mist and silence. Emily and Nathan lived isolated in a rustic cabin, surrounded by the vastness of untouched forest. The decision to distance themselves from the city had come with the birth of Lily, their few-month-old daughter. They wanted to raise her away from the noise and pressures of the modern world, in an environment where nature dictated the rhythm of life. Emily adjusted Lily in the wooden crib that Nathan had carved by hand. The baby's tiny fingers instinctively curled around her mother's thumb, instantly drawing out a smile. "She seems so at peace here," whispered Emily, watching her daughter fall asleep. "We made the right choice, didn't we?" Nathan approached from behind, enveloping his wife in a protective embrace. "The best possible choice. Look out the window. Who else has this as their backyard?" The vastness of the pine forest stretched, as far as the eye could see, dotted with century-old trees that seemed to touch the starry sky. The harsh winter made the nights even more silent, but on that particular evening, what caught Emily's attention wasn't the biting cold, but the complete absence of sounds. No crickets, no nocturnal birds, just an unsettling void. "Do you hear that?" asked Emily, furrowing her brow. "Hear what?" "Exactly, there's no sound at all." Nathan strained his ears. After 3 years living in that isolation, he had become an expert at distinguishing the sounds of the forest. He could identify bird species just by their song, knew when a storm was approaching by the behavior of insects. But that night, it was as if the forest had held its breath. The icy breeze carried something more than the mountain humidity. A sensation of alertness ran down Emily's spine when a distant sound broke the stillness. A howl, deep and melancholic, coming from somewhere in the dense woods. It wasn't an ordinary call. It had an urgent tone, almost like a plea. "Grey wolf," identified Nathan, moving toward the window. "But they're very close. They never come this near to the cabin." "Did something scare them?" questioned Emily, instinctively, looking toward Lily's crib. "Maybe. Or—" Nathan hesitated before opening the cabin door to check. It was then that he saw among the shadows a slender figure standing on the thin snow that covered the ground. The grey wolf, with its silver-grey coat, contrasted with the white of winter. It neither advanced nor retreated. It simply stared at the house with bright, attentive eyes. Beside it, a pup was trying to stand but visibly limping. "Emily, come see this," he called in a low voice. She approached cautiously, stopping beside her husband at the threshold. The sight of the majestic animal left her breathless. There was something hypnotic about its gaze. "Is it injured?" she asked, noticing how the pup favored one of its legs. "The pup is. Looks like it hurt its front paw." The couple exchanged glances. It wasn't common for grey wolves to approach humans this closely, especially in that manner. There was no sign of aggression, just a striking presence and a silent request. "I've never seen anything like this," murmured Nathan. "It's as if they're asking for help." Against all instincts of self-preservation, Emily felt that the animal needed help. There was something different in those eyes, a kind of intelligence beyond what she expected. "We have to do something," she said, determined. "Emily, they're wild animals. We can't just ignore them," Emily completed, feeling an inexplicable connection with those animals. "Look into its eyes, Nathan. This isn't normal." Nathan hesitated. As an amateur biologist, he knew enough about animal behavior to understand that this was extraordinary. Grey wolves normally avoided human contact at all costs. Something truly serious must be happening. "All right," he finally conceded. "We can shelter them in the shed for tonight. Tomorrow we'll assess the situation better." With slow, deliberate movements, Nathan exited the cabin. The adult wolf maintained a fixed gaze, alert to every step, but showed no hostility. It seemed to be waiting. "This way," called Nathan, pointing to the wooden shed where they stored firewood and tools. "Come on, boy." To his surprise, the animal seemed to understand. With a slight movement of its head, it nudged the pup in the indicated direction. Emily and Nathan exchanged looks of astonishment. "Did you see that?" whispered Emily, incredulous. The shed wasn't the coziest environment. but it offered protection against the cutting wind of the mountains. Nathan lit an oil lamp, illuminating the space with a flickering yellowish light. In a corner, he piled some old blankets to form a kind of improvised bed. "Here," he offered, stepping back afterward. "They can be comfortable." The adult wolf sniffed the environment, slowly circling the space. Before leading the pup to the blankets, the little one settled in, licking its injured paw. Under the lamp's light, Nathan could better observe the wound. "Looks like a deep cut," he analyzed. "Perhaps something sharp, metal. Doesn't seem like an injury caused by another animal." "A trap?" suggested Emily, apprehensive. "Possible. But hunting is prohibited in this area. This is an ecological refuge." Emily approached cautiously, kneeling at a safe distance. "We need to clean that wound. Infection in wild animals can be fatal." The adult wolf observed her attentively, as if assessing her intentions. There was something so human in that gaze that Emily felt a shiver run down her spine. "I'll get warm water and the first aid kit," she decided, rising slowly. "You stay here and keep the lamp lit." Upon returning to the cabin, Emily checked on Lily in the crib. The girl was sleeping deeply, oblivious to the drama unfolding just a few yards away. While heating water on the wood stove, Emily couldn't stop thinking about the strange coincidence. Why, of all possible places in the vastness of the mountains, had those animals sought help precisely at their door? With the first aid kit and a basin of warm water, she returned to the shed. Nathan remained seated on an improvised bench, observing the animals. "They haven't moved," he reported. "The pup seems exhausted." Emily approached again, this time speaking in a low voice. "I just want to help, okay? I won't hurt you." To the couple's amazement, the adult wolf moved slightly away, as if giving permission for Emily to approach the pup. It was completely atypical behavior for a wild animal, especially a mother protecting her offspring. "This is unbelievable," murmured Nathan, witnessing the scene. With extreme delicacy, Emily cleaned the pup's wound. The small animal trembled a few times but didn't try to escape or bite. The cut was deep but clean, confirming Nathan's theory about a possible trap. "Who would do something like this?" questioned Emily, indignant, while applying a mild antiseptic. "These animals are endangered species." "Exactly why," Nathan responded grimly. "Illegal hunters pay fortunes for cubs of rare species." The night continued with a charged atmosphere. After caring for the pup, the couple returned to the cabin, leaving the shed door slightly ajar so the animals could leave when they wished. Inside the cabin, Emily could barely sleep. Her maternal instinct mingled with the presentiment that something bigger was at stake. At some point, Lily cried, and, almost at the same time, a low sound came from the shed, as if the wolf were responding to the baby. It was a comforting sound, an instinctive murmur, as if the presence of the child somehow sensitized the wolf. The coincidence disturbed her. The sun was peeking over the horizon when Emily woke with a start. She had slept only a few hours, in intervals interspersed with thoughts about the wolves in the shed. Nathan was already up, preparing coffee in the rustic kitchen. "Good morning," he greeted her, noticing his wife's puffy eyes. "I couldn't sleep well either." Emily checked on Lily, who was happily playing in the crib with a wooden mobile. "How's our little explorer?" "Slept through the night after that last cry. Amazing, isn't it?" "Yes," Emily hesitated before asking. "Did you hear it too, the wolf? It responded to her cry." Nathan stopped stirring the spoon in the cup. "I thought I had imagined it. So you noticed it too." A heavy silence settled between them, loaded with unanswered questions. After a hasty breakfast, both headed to the shed, anxious to check on their nocturnal guests. Upon opening the door, the surprise was immediate. The shed was completely empty. The blankets were crumpled in the corner, indicating that the animals had spent the night there, but there was no sign of the wolves. "They're gone," observed Nathan, entering the space and looking around. "Must have been at dawn." Emily felt a strange pang of disappointment. There was something about those animals, especially in the gaze of the adult wolf, that deeply intrigued her, as if it wanted to say something she couldn't understand. "Let's check the surroundings," she suggested, adjusting her coat. Maybe we'll find some clue to where they went. Nathan nodded, grabbing his snow boots and a flashlight as a precaution. They left Lily secure in the crib, the baby monitor on, and went out to explore the area around the cabin. The fine snow that had fallen during the night offered a perfect record of everything that had moved in the area. The wolves' paw prints were clear, leaving the shed and heading toward the dense pine forest. But something unexpected caught Emily's attention. "Nathan, look at this." She pointed to a different set of marks in the snow. Human footprints. Nathan crouched to examine. Them better. They were, without a doubt, tracks from hiking boots skirting the property and stopping near the shed. Whoever it was had observed the cabin during the night. "Someone was here," he murmured, his expression worried. "Recently, maybe during the early morning." A chill that had nothing to do with the mountain cold ran through Emily. Hunters. Possible, but how would they know about the wolves? Unless they were following their trail to our property, completed Emily, feeling a knot of anxiety form in her stomach. Before they could process the discovery, a dry sound echoed through the forest, the unmistakable noise of a gunshot. Then, another. The series of cracks reverberated among the mountains like distant thunder. "They're coming from that direction," Nathan pointed north, where the woods grew denser. "The same path the wolves took." Instinctively, the two ran back to the cabin. Emily checked on Lily, who continued sleeping peacefully, oblivious to the growing tension. Nathan, however, quickly climbed to the attic, adapted as an observatory. With binoculars, he scanned the landscape in the direction of the shots. "I can see movement," he reported. 3 people, men, armed. They're following a trail in the snow." Emily felt her blood run cold. "The wolves' tracks?" "Seems like it. They're determined, moving with precision." While Nathan observed, one of the men suddenly stopped and looked in the direction of the cabin. Even at a distance, the biologist felt a chill when he realized they were being watched back. "They've seen us," he said, lowering the binoculars. "One of them is pointing here." For some tense moments, the hunters seemed to be discussing among themselves. Then the one who appeared to be the leader made a gesture to the others, and the group changed direction, moving away from the direct line to the cabin. "They've altered their course," informed Nathan, hastily descending the attic stairs. "But they're still on the wolves' trail." Emily hugged herself, trying to process what was happening. "What do we do now?" Nathan ran his hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. "We can't confront armed men, and we have Lily to protect." "But the wolves, that pup was hurt, Nathan. If these hunters catch up to them..." The decision hung between them, heavy as the dense air before a storm. Stay safe in the cabin, or try to help creatures that for some mysterious reason had sought their protection. The sun was already high when they decided to at least check the perimeter nearest to the property. If the hunters were truly distant, perhaps they could find the wolves first and help them hide. The day advanced slowly, each hour weighing like lead for Emily and Nathan. The decision to remain in the cabin hadn't been easy, but the responsibility to Lily spoke louder. Still, with every sound coming from the forest, both tensed their shoulders, imagining if it was the hunters or the grey wolves. "I'll check the radio again," said Nathan, heading to the old device they kept for emergencies. Reception in the mountains was precarious, but sometimes they could pick up the forest ranger frequency. While adjusting the dial, catching only static, Emily busied herself preparing soup with vegetables they grew in the small garden behind the cabin. The comforting smell of fresh rosemary and thyme filled the space, creating an atmosphere of normalcy that contrasted with the day's tension. "Nothing," sighed Nathan, turning off the radio. "The storm that's forming must be interfering with the signal." Emily looked out the window. Dense dark clouds were accumulating on the horizon, promising heavy snow for that night. "If these men have any sense, they won't stay in the forest. With this storm coming." "That's what I hope," responded Nathan, embracing her from behind. "Maybe nature is giving our wild friends a helping hand." The rest of the afternoon passed with an artificial calm. They played with Lily on the living room rug, read stories, made plans for the spring garden. Everything to ward off the worry that loomed like a shadow over the cabin. In the late afternoon, as the sky acquired orange tones and snow began to fall in thick flakes, Emily spotted movement near the tree line. Her heart raced when she recognized the slender, grayish silhouette. "Nathan, it's back!" The large grey wolf was walking with difficulty through the already accumulated snow. It was alone this time and bore visible marks on its coat. Even from a distance, Emily noticed dark spots that looked like blood. "It's injured," she observed, already grabbing her coat. "And where's the pup?" Nathan hesitated only an instant before also preparing to go out. "Stay with Lily, I'll check." "No," protested Emily, determined. "We'll go together. Lily is sleeping, the monitor is on, and it'll be quick." After verifying that the baby was sleeping deeply, the couple went out into the biting cold of the evening. The grey wolf awaited them patiently, as if certain they would come. As they approached, they could see the extent of the injuries. They weren't serious, but the animal was breathing with difficulty, as if it had fought or fled from something. There were scratches on its flank, and a particularly concerning bloodstain on its hind leg. "Where's your pup?" murmured Emily, crouching at a safe distance. As if understanding the question, the animal looked toward the woods, then back at them, in a deliberate movement. It looked at Emily and Nathan with urgency, then looked toward the forest as if expecting them to understand what it needed. "I think it wants us to follow it," said Nathan, surprised at his own conclusion. "This is crazy," responded Emily, but she was already moving in the direction indicated by the animal. "Completely irrational." "And yet, we're doing it," completed Nathan, following her. The grey wolf led the way, limping slightly, but maintaining a steady pace. The snow was falling harder and harder, making visibility difficult. If it weren't for the animal's grey coat, they would easily have lost sight of it. After approximately 15 minutes walking into the forest, the sound of their steps muffled by the snow, the wolf stopped in a small clearing. There, caught in a metal trap, was the pup. Emily felt a knot in her stomach. That trap wasn't ordinary capture equipment. It was illegal, with metal teeth designed to capture and injure, not just trap. The small wolf whimpered in pain, its paw already swollen from the wound. "My God," whispered Emily, approaching cautiously. "What cruelty!" Nathan examined the trap, looking for the release mechanism. "We need a lever to open it." While searching for a sturdy branch nearby, a noise caught his attention. Firm footsteps echoed across the ground covered with leaves and snow. Instinctively, he pulled Emily behind a thick tree. One of the hunters emerged from the shadows, rifle in hand, with a satisfied look upon seeing that the trap had worked. The threat was clear, even before he spoke. "Well, well," said the man, his harsh voice cutting through the silence of the forest. "Looks like I'm not the only one interested in this pup." The hunter was a middle-aged man, athletic build, dressed appropriately for the rigor of the mountain winter. His face, weathered by sun and wind, indicated years of outdoor life. In other circumstances, he might have seemed just an experienced mountaineer, but the cold, calculating look, added to the rifle he held with familiarity, revealed his true nature. "You're the residents of the cabin," he stated, not as a question. "You interfered last night when these creatures appeared on your property." Nathan stepped forward, instinctively placing himself between the man and Emily. "These creatures are protected by law. Hunting is prohibited in this reserve." An ironic smile appeared on the hunter's face. "Laws are for those who live in cities. Here in the mountains, the rules are different." The adult wolf had hidden among the trees the moment the man appeared, but its bright eyes could be seen in the growing darkness. The pup continued whimpering, trapped in the cruel trap. "What do you want with them?" questioned Emily, her voice trembling with contained anger. The hunter analyzed the scene for a moment before responding. "Lucrative business. Collectors pay fortunes for rare specimens, especially these." "Grey wolves?" asked Nathan, confused. "They're rare, yes, but why especially these?" "You really don't know, do you?" The man laughed, a sound without humor. "These aren't common grey wolves. They're the so-called guardians of the mountains. They're said to possess almost human intelligence." The revelation hung in the freezing air like the snowflakes that fell increasingly intensely. Emily and Nathan exchanged quick glances, recalling the unusual behavior of the animals. "That's superstition," retorted Nathan, trying to keep his voice firm. "Is it?" challenged the hunter. Then, how do you explain that they sought help specifically from you? How do you explain that this one, he pointed to the adult wolf partially hidden, brought you directly here? Normal wolves don't do that. Emily felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. The man's words echoed her own perceptions. Whatever they are, she intervened, it doesn't justify this cruelty. The hunter sighed, as if dealing with stubborn children. Look, let's make a deal. You can leave without problems. Pretend you never saw us. I take the pup and we all win. And if we refuse? Challenged Nathan. The man's look hardened and he subtly adjusted the rifle. Then we'll have a problem. You have a small daughter in that cabin, don't you? It would be a shame if something happened. The veiled threat hit the couple like a punch. A primitive anger grew in Emily's chest, at the same time that fear for Lily's safety almost paralyzed her. How do you know about our daughter? She questioned, her voice trembling. We've been observing you for days before setting the traps, he responded casually. We know your schedules, your routines. We know when you're alone. The revelation that they had been observed for days left the couple even more disturbed. The storm now fell with full force, reducing visibility and transforming the forest into a white, hostile world. Time seemed to drag, and Nathan realized they didn't have many options. They were unarmed, outnumbered, as the other hunters certainly weren't far, and with Lily alone in the cabin. How much do you want? He finally asked reluctantly. We can pay for you to leave the wolves in peace. The hunter smiled, savoring the apparent victory. It's not a question of money. My client specifically wants these animals. For years we've tried to capture them, but they always escape. They're different. But before any decision could be made, a subtle movement around them made the hunter harden his expression. From the midst of the dense vegetation, pairs of bright eyes began to emerge. In absolute silence, the entire pack emerged from the shadows. There were many, more than Emily or Nathan could have imagined. They didn't growl, they didn't advance. They merely surrounded the space, waiting. Emily counted at least 12 grey wolves, all with the same unsettlingly intelligent gaze. They were strategically positioned, forming a circle around the clearing. The hunter, realizing he was at a disadvantage, backed away a few steps and slowly lowered his weapon. The sweat on his forehead contrasted with the intense cold. This doesn't end here, he warned, his voice less confident now. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Before disappearing among the trees, the hunter issued a final warning, his voice almost swallowed by the storm's wind. Those creatures aren't normal. If you want to understand what you're protecting, you should seek out the old mountain residents. The phrase kept echoing in Emily's mind as she cautiously approached the trapped pup. The wolves of the pack maintained their distance, observing every movement. The adult wolf that had guided them positioned itself beside the pup, licking its head in a gesture of comfort. We have to free it, said Emily, examining the cruel trap. Nathan found a sturdy pine branch and used it as a lever. After some minutes of effort, they managed to open the metal jaws. The pup whimpered when the pressure was relieved, revealing a deep but not fatal wound. When the small wolf was finally freed, its mother appeared and gently nudged it with her muzzle, encouraging it to stand. For a brief instant, Emily felt that there was something in that maternal gaze that resembled her own instinct to protect Lily. It was a silent understanding between mothers of different species. Will they be okay? She asked, concerned about the pup's injured paw. I think so, responded Nathan, observing how the little one could support itself, albeit with difficulty. But we need to get back to Lily. This storm is worsening. The snow now fell intensely, reducing visibility to just a few yards. The wolves began to disperse, disappearing into the shadows of the forest. Only the adult wolf and its pup remained, as if waiting for something. The path is that way, pointed Nathan, trying to orient himself with the compass he always carried. To his surprise, the adult wolf softly grunted and began walking in another direction, looking back as if inviting them to follow. It wants us to go that way, realized Emily. I think it's showing us an alternative path. Trusting a wolf in a snowstorm, Nathan hesitated, consulting the compass again. "Seems crazy." "This night has already surpassed all definitions of normality," responded Emily, already following. "The animal. And something tells me it knows these paths much better than we do." Reluctantly, Nathan followed her. The wolf guided them along a narrow trail, less exposed to the strong wind. After about 20 minutes, they spotted a faint light between the trees. It was the cabin. The animal had chosen the safest and most direct path, avoiding ravines and unstable areas. "Unbelievable," murmured Nathan when they reached the porch. "How did it know?" The wolf and the pup stopped a few yards from the house, observing the couple. There was an evident intelligence in those eyes, a connection that defied scientific explanations. "Go check on Lily," said Nathan to Emily. "I'll prepare a warm place in the shed for them to spend the night." While Nathan arranged blankets in the shed, Emily found their daughter still sleeping peacefully. Relieved, she took the old diary she kept in the bedside table drawer and began to record the extraordinary events of that day. As she wrote, a sudden memory hit her, the hunter's final words about the old residence. "The old mountain residence," she murmured to herself. When Nathan returned, Emily was already waiting for him with an open book on the kitchen table. It was an almanac about the region's history, which they had bought when they moved to the cabin. "We need to discover what these guardians of the mountains are," she said, determined. "The behavior of these wolves isn't natural, Nathan. They understand, communicate, reason almost like humans," he completed, sitting heavily in the chair. "I know it sounds absurd for a biologist to say this, but I can't find another explanation." While the snowstorm battered the cabin, Emily and Nathan spent hours poring over the almanac and other books they had brought when they moved to the mountains. The flickering light of the oil lamps created dancing shadows on the wooden walls, while the wind howled like a living creature outside. "Here," pointed Emily finally. Her finger stopped on a paragraph in a section about local legends. "The Guardians of the Mountains, a Ute legend." Nathan brought the lamp closer so they could read better. The text told of an ancient legend, of the Ute indigenous people who inhabited the region before colonization. According to the story, there was a spiritual connection between the tribe's shamans and certain grey wolves of the mountains, considered protectors of the forest and messengers between the human world and the spiritual world. According to tradition, Emily read aloud, the Ute believed that some grey wolves were actually the spirits of ancient shamans, returned to protect the forest and its secrets. These guardians supposedly possessed human intelligence and could recognize people with kindred souls, humans capable of understanding the language of the forest. Nathan furrowed his brow, his scientific side struggling against what they had witnessed. "That would explain why they specifically sought our help, and also why that hunter and his client are so interested in them," completed Emily. "It's not just for the rarity of the species." Continuing the reading, they discovered that, according to the legend, there was a sacred cave in the mountains where the guardians gathered on full moon nights. So the place was considered a portal between worlds, where ancient secrets were preserved. "Wait," interrupted Nathan, running his fingers over the topographical map of the region they kept on the wall. "I think I know where this cave is. There's a system of caves about 2 miles from here, on the northern slope. We never explored it because access is difficult, especially in winter." A sudden cry from Lily interrupted the conversation. Emily went to breastfeed her, contemplating everything they had discovered while cradling her daughter. When she returned to the kitchen, she found Nathan looking out the window, thoughtful. "Are the wolves still in the shed?" she asked, joining him. "Yes, it's as if they're waiting for something." The early morning advanced with increasingly elaborate theories. The storm finally abated around 4 in the morning, leaving an almost supernatural silence in its wake. It was then that they heard a distinct howl coming from the shed. Nathan grabbed the flashlight and went out to check, with Emily following close behind after making sure that Lily was sleeping deeply. Upon opening the shed door, they found the wolves agitated, the adult scratching the door as if wanting to get out. "I think they want us to follow them again," said Emily, her heart accelerating at the prospect. "Now? It's 4 in the morning," protested Nathan, but he was already grabbing his snow boots. The sky was beginning to lighten faintly on the horizon when they left, following the wolves through the landscape transformed by the storm. The snow had created ghostly sculptures in the trees, and the silence was broken only by the soft sound of their steps sinking in the white mantle. The wolves guided them exactly in the direction Nathan had indicated on the map, the cave system on the northern slope. After an exhausting walk through the deep snow, they reached an opening partially hidden among rocky formations covered with ice. "It's here," murmured Nathan, illuminating the entrance with the flashlight, "the cave mentioned in the legend." The adult wolf entered first, followed by the pup. After exchanging a brief look, Emily and Nathan followed them, bending to pass through the narrow opening. The interior of the cave was surprisingly spacious and, more impressively, not completely dark. A soft bluish glow emanated from crystals encrusted in the walls, creating a natural, ethereal illumination. "Bioluminescent quartz," identified Nathan, amazed. "I've never seen anything like it." As they advanced, the tunnel opened into a breathtaking circular chamber. The walls were decorated with ancient rock paintings, figures of animals, humans, and abstract symbols in red ochre and black. And standing out among the images, grey wolves were portrayed alongside human figures with elaborate headdresses, presumably the Ute shamans. "It's incredible," whispered Emily, gently touching the drawings. "These paintings must be hundreds of years old." While they explored the chamber, the adult wolf sat in the center of the space, observing them attentively. The pup played with a small stone, pushing it with its muzzle as a human child might do. "Look at this," called Nathan, pointing to a more recent inscription carved into a flat stone. "It's in English. It looks like a diary." The carved stone revealed itself to be an improvised diary, dated 1974. It belonged to a man named William Carter, a researcher who had lived in the region studying the local fauna. His notes, though worn by time, were still legible under the flashlight. "Day 137 in the field," read Nathan in a low voice. "I've finally gained the trust of the pack." The behavior of these grey wolves defies any known scientific classification. Their intelligence, their ability to communicate among themselves and with other animals. It's as if they were an entirely different species. Emily sat on a smooth rock, absorbing those words while observing the two wolves that had guided them there. "Continue," she requested, feeling they were about to discover something crucial. "The matriarch of the pack," Nathan proceeded, "seems to understand my gestures, my intentions. Yesterday, when I treated an injured deer, she watched the process attentively, as if studying my techniques. Today I found a baby bird fallen from its nest, already cared for and protected by the wolves until the mother returned." "Exactly as they did with their own pup, bringing it to us," observed Emily. Nathan nodded, continuing the reading. "The Ute people were right. These aren't just animals. They're guardians, protectors. Their connection with this land goes beyond instinct. There's an ancestral wisdom in their eyes." The notes continued, detailing how William had gradually understood that the grey wolves of that specific region were the result of an isolated and unique evolution, enhanced by the singular energy of that place, the cave with its bioluminescent crystals. He believed the crystals emitted some type of natural radiation that affected the evolution of these wolves over generations, explained Nathan, not as mystical as the Ute legend, but still extraordinary from a scientific standpoint. "And that's why the hunters want them," concluded Emily, "not just as trophies, but to study this unique evolution." The final entries of the diary revealed that William had made a vow to protect the wolves and their habitat. He had built a cabin nearby, probably the same one Emily and Nathan now occupied, and dedicated the rest of his life to keeping away hunters and unscrupulous researchers. "If you are reading this," the inscription ended, "it's because the Guardians have chosen you. They recognize those with gentle souls, those who understand that not everything in nature needs to be explained or conquered. Some mysteries deserve to be protected." A reverent silence filled the cave when Nathan finished reading. The adult wolf approached slowly, sitting before them with dignity. Its golden eyes reflected the bluish light of the crystals while maintaining Emily's gaze. "It's choosing us," she whispered, feeling a deep and inexplicable connection. As it chose William before us. To protect them, completed Nathan, finally understanding. The cycle continues. At that moment, as if responding to a silent call, other wolves began to enter the cave. They were the same ones that had surrounded the hunter in the forest, but now they approached with confidence. Among them, pups played carelessly, some observing Emily and Nathan with childlike curiosity. A new generation, observed Nathan, amazed, continuing a legacy we didn't even know existed. One of the pups, particularly bold, approached Emily and sniffed her boot. She smiled, crouching carefully to not frighten it. The small wolf stared at her with curious eyes before licking her extended hand in a gesture that seemed almost human. "What do we do now?" she asked Nathan, although she already knew the answer in her heart. "We continue William's work," he responded without hesitation. "We protect this place, these animals. It's part of the responsibility of living here." The return to the cabin was made in contemplative silence, each absorbing the discoveries of that extraordinary night. Dawn was already coloring the sky when they arrived, the first rays of sun creating diamonds in the pristine snow. Lily greeted them with cheerful coos, as if she knew something important had happened. Emily took her in her arms, watching through the window as the wolves dispersed into the forest, returning to their secret routines. "She'll grow up understanding," said Emily, cradling her daughter. "Understanding that we share this world with creatures that deserve our respect and protection." In the days that followed, Emily and Nathan began implementing measures to better protect the area. They removed traps abandoned by hunters, marked alternative trails to keep tourists away from the cave region, and started their own diary, continuing William's observations. The grey wolves became constant if discreet presences in their lives. Sometimes Emily would spot the matriarch wolf observing the cabin from afar, like a silent sentinel. Other times at dawn, they would find paw prints around the property, as if the pack conducted night rounds protecting them as well. On a particularly clear afternoon, while Emily rocked Lily on the porch, the baby pointed to the tree line and let out a high-pitched sound of joy. There, partially visible between the pine trunks, the pup they had saved was watching, its paw completely healed. Upon realizing it had been noticed, it slightly tilted its head, in a gesture that almost seemed like a greeting before disappearing into the dense forest. Emily smiled, hugging Lily closer. "Yes, little one," she whispered. "They are our friends, and these mountains are our home now, all of ours." Night fell slowly over the Rocky Mountains, wrapping the peaks in a veil of mist and silence. But now, for the family in the rustic cabin, that silence was full of meaning, of voices that not everyone could hear, but that they had learned to understand. The legacy of the guardians of the mountains would continue, protected by those who understood that some mysteries of nature don't need to be unraveled, just respected and preserved for future generations. One winter evening, 3 months after their discovery in the cave, Emily was washing dishes while Nathan read to Lily by the fireplace. A soft scratching at the door caught their attention. Opening it cautiously, Nathan found a small package wrapped in leaves and pine needles. "What is it?" called Emily from inside. Nathan brought the package in, unwrapping it carefully on the kitchen table. Inside was a perfect quartz crystal, similar to those in the cave but smaller, glowing with the same soft blue light. "A gift," he said in wonder, "from our guardians." They placed the crystal by Lily's crib, where it cast a gentle blue glow that seemed to soothe the baby into deep, peaceful sleep every night. Sometimes, in the early hours before dawn, Emily would wake to the soft sound of wolves howling in the distance, not a sound of threat or hunger, but a melody that seemed to resonate with the glowing crystal, as if they were all connected in some ancient, mystical way. Spring arrived, melting the snow and awakening new life in the mountains. Emily planted their garden with Lily watching from a basket nearby, cooing at butterflies and reaching for dandelion seeds floating in the air. Nathan had begun documenting the wolves more systematically, setting up trail cameras, carefully positioned to avoid disturbing them, and keeping detailed notes that he hoped to one day share with trusted conservation scientists. One morning, as the family ate breakfast on the porch, Enjoying the warm sunshine, they spotted movement at the forest edge. The matriarch wolf emerged, followed by her growing pup, now almost adolescent, and 3 tiny new cubs wobbling on uncertain legs. "She's showing us her new family," whispered Emily, tears welling in her eyes. The wolf stood proudly at the edge of the clearing, her intelligent eyes fixed on the humans. With a deliberate movement that could not be mistaken, she dipped her head in what appeared to be a respectful bow before leading her family back into the protective shadows of the forest. That night, Nathan added to their growing journal, "Today we were formally introduced to the next generation of guardians. The trust shown to us is a responsibility we will never take lightly. As William before us, we are now part of this ancient cycle of protection and respect." As the seasons passed, Lily grew from infant to toddler, taking her first steps on the cabin's wooden floors. Her dark eyes held a wisdom beyond her years, and she seemed to share her parents' special connection with the forest and its mysterious guardians. Often, Emily would find her daughter standing at the window, small palms pressed against the glass, watching the tree line with focused attention just before a wolf would appear, as if they had called to each other in some silent language. The hunters never returned, but occasionally hikers or campers would stray too close to the sacred areas. Nathan and Emily became skilled at gently redirecting them, sharing carefully edited stories about dangerous terrain or protected research zones. They became known in the nearest town as the eccentric family who lived deep in the mountains year-round, private but kind, with an uncanny knowledge of the forest and its ways. And sometimes when visitors would comment on the unusually low rates of missing hikers or accidents in their region of the mountains compared to others, Emily would simply smile and say, "We have good guardians here." One evening, as the sun set behind the mountain peaks casting purple shadows across the valley, Emily finished writing in their journal while watching Lily, now 3 years old, playing with wooden blocks on the cabin floor. Nathan entered from checking the generator before the predicted overnight storm. "I've been thinking," he said, settling beside her at the table. "What William did, what we're doing, it can't just end with us. Someday we'll be gone, and Lily might choose a different path." Emily nodded, understanding his concern. "We need to ensure the guardians will always have human allies." "A trust," Nathan suggested. "We could establish a conservation trust for this land, with very specific guidelines about restricted areas, people who believe in preservation, who would continue the work without needing to know all the details. And we document everything, save the evidence, but keep it secure until the right time," added Emily, "when the world is ready to understand without exploiting." That night, as the storm raged outside, they drafted the beginnings of what would become the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Sanctuary Trust, a legal entity that would ensure the protection of the wolves and their sacred spaces long after Emily and Nathan were gone. The true nature of the guardians would remain a secret, held by trusted caretakers, generation after generation. Outside, through the howling wind, they heard the wolves' answering calls, not fearful of the storm, but singing. With it, their voices weaving into the fabric of the mountain night. And in her small bed, Lily smiled in her sleep, already part of a legacy that bridged the human and wild worlds. Night falls once again over the Rocky Mountains, wrapping the peaks in familiar veils of mist and silence. The cabin stands warm and solid, a beacon of light in the vast wilderness. Inside, a family has found its purpose as protectors of an ancient mystery. Outside, moving like shadows through the forest, the guardians continue their eternal watch, wild and free, yet connected to those who understand that some bonds transcend species, some wisdom transcends words, and some spirits are forever bound to the land they protect.